Zweig Group invites all AEC industry leaders to the 2024 AEC Small Business and Entrepreneurship Forum, the premier event for small firms in the AEC sector. Experience innovative strategies and insights on May 21st, crafted by Zweig Group's industry experts. Engage in keynotes and interactive sessions focused on recruitment, retention, and business growth. Join Zweig Group for this unique networking opportunity and take your business to new heights. Secure your spot today and be part of the AEC industry's future. Visit zweiggroup.com for more information. The Zweig Group team looks forward to welcoming you.
Welcome to the Zweig Letter Podcast, putting architectural, engineering, planning, and environmental consulting guru Mark Zweig and his team of expert straight talk in your ear. Mark has more than 30 years of experience helping AEP and environmental firms thrive, and these podcasts deliver his invaluable management, industry, client, and HR advice directly to you, free of charge. The Zweig Letter Podcasts let you develop professionally, wherever you are.
Hey, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Zweig Letter Podcast. Our goal is to bring you some of the best and brightest minds that the AEC industry has to offer. Today, I am pleased to welcome James Hillegas from Structural MD and Osborne Engineering to the show. James is a 23-year-old millennial, as we like to say, that is doing some amazing things. And this is a young man that I ran across, and I was just really blown away by what he's accomplished in such a short period of time. He recently graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Structural Engineering, and now he is on to his master's, and he has started a company. He gets up super early in the morning. He's doing some amazing things. And so, James, it's great to have you join us on the Zweig Letter interview series. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and tell us about Structural MD, which is your company, and then tell us a little bit about Osborne Engineering.
Sure. So first, thank you very much, Randy, for having me on. Honored. Not often that you hear the word millennial and doing extraordinary things in the same sentence. And I have to give a shout out to Sanjay for introducing me to you. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but a little bit about me. So I guess my interest in construction started out when I was 2 or 3 years old. I grew up behind a farm, and every time they were baling hay, I always made mom stop and watch. We had a green, I think it was a 1993 Ford Explorer, and we stopped and watched them bale hay for hours.
Okay.
Thought that was impressive. And then any construction site we drove by, we always stopped and watched the magic that occurred inside of that orange fence. So I always grew up fascinated with construction. First couple jobs was, a foreman at a landscaping company. So all the patio work. I did all the hardscapes and the waterfalls and all that cool stuff that people like. And then I worked at Carter Lumber. So I did pole barns and house packages and decks and all that sort of stuff that comes along with it. So just kind of a natural fit to go into civil engineering. First co-op was with a contractor, again in the Cleveland area, Shook Construction, and that was a really great exposure to the building side of it, learning how things go together. They did a lot of wastewater treatment plants, which I wasn't too keen of when I get hired, and I think a lot of people are like, oh, that's like disgusting, but it's fascinating in the sense that it's like it's basically like NASCAR. Like you have to change the tires on the car without stopping the car, because you can shut down parts of the plant, but you can't shut down the whole thing.
Right.
So there's a lot of logistics. So that was really fascinating. And it always incorporated basically everything, mechanical, all the water and all the electrical. And they were all getting updated because obviously it was in Cleveland and their stuff's old. So they're getting updated 21st century. And then after that, I was introduced to Osborne Engineering through a couple of the executives at Shook, just because I wanted to try out the design side. And I was hired by Osborne Engineering in 2015 as a co-op, and have stayed on ever since.
Wow.
Love the company.
Yeah.
So they've grown a lot since I came along. So now I'm like an older person, quote unquote, at Osborne, just because I've been here for 2 years relative to a lot of the new hires I've had. But they do a lot of cool stuff, a lot of sports stadiums. Like we have the old drawings to the Yankee Stadium in Fenway.
Oh, okay.
So those are the original construction drawings, and those are kind of got to be worth some money somewhere to somebody. I'm sure.
Whatever you can share, what interesting projects are you guys currently working on as a company?
Yeah, sure. So one of the big ones we're doing right now is we inspected all of the catenary poles for the RTA in Cleveland.
Okay.
Those are the poles that hold up the utility line. So that's been my main project. My first project with them was Public Square in downtown Cleveland, which was really, really cool. That was basically transforming the middle of Cleveland into kind of a Central Park-ish type feel.
Mm-hmm.
So that was our project. It was basically, part of it was with the sewer district and helping with, dealing with stormwater and trying to make green spaces in the city, kind of rerouting traffic a little bit to, make it more pedestrian friendly.
Yep.
And it was really fascinating just because the above ground, it looks beautiful, but below ground, the utilities were kind of a nightmare when this project started. So everybody and anybody that had a utility that you could ever think of, from the simple like AT&T and the First Energy all the way up through FBI and CIA having stuff. So there was times where the FBI was out there to make sure that stuff wasn't tampered with their lines. So that was a very fascinating project.
Yeah, you can't mess with the lines of the FBI at all. So yeah, that's awesome. So tell me a little bit about how you've been able to kind of manage your time at Osborne with Structural MD, and tell us a little bit about Structural MD and what you've been doing there.
Sure. So Structural MD is basically what I do. So I started doing 3D printing for people. So 3D printing is my graduate thesis. Specifically, that's with concrete 3D printing. Mm-hmm. But I just was fascinated by 3D printing in the sense that it gave a lot of design freedom.
Yep.
So with structural engineering, I just found, and I'm a millennial, so I don't have a lot of experience. So I'll just put that out there first as a disclaimer.
Right.
But I was like, just simply kind of figuring out what the loads were and then picking a beam that was close enough that could handle that capacity. There wasn't a whole lot of design freedom, and 3D printing just kind of gave that design freedom.
Yeah.
Like pretty much anything I can think of, I can draw. So I just started doing that for people on the side, and that's kind of evolved from there. And that's been led into drones and other things of that nature.
Yeah, I saw, because I follow you on Instagram, I saw your account. You posted some information on some of the 3D casting that you've done. I thought it was really interesting. I'll have to put a link up on our show notes for this particular show so that people can kind of take a look at some of your handiwork and what you've done. Talk a little bit about the drone technology and what you've been able to do with that. Yeah,
sure. So a little bit of background. My first real project when I graduated with my BS last year was, for bridge inspections to the Ohio Turnpike. And for everything that engineering was like made up to seem like really neat and organized and progressive, it just didn't quite jive with the expectations I had. And so like any good millennial, I started Googling stuff and, started learning about drones. And I contacted a company out in Colorado. It was called Unmanned Experts.
Okay.
Because in 2015, the Minnesota Department of Transportation did a research study on drones. So this was like pre-FAA. Like the FAA still didn't have all their rules figured out with who was flying drones, where you were flying drones, who was allowed to fly them. So like if you flew a drone, it was either A, illegal, or B, you went through so many hoops that it pretty much stopped anybody.
Yeah.
But the Minnesota Department of Transportation did a pilot study. Because that was, what's the math, 8 years after that unfortunate collapse of the I-35,
right.
Which is kind of a scarlet letter on their half. So they started looking into drones, and this company came out and did the flying for them.
Okay.
Well, I read that. It was about a 300-page report, read the thing front to back, called the company. It was like, hey, just graduated school. This is pretty cool. Like, if I can get involved, let me know. And they're like, yeah, here you go. So they threw me in the deep end. And they just started sending me videos and photos of, they were doing railroad bridges in the Northeast. And I just started analyzing the photos and going through and marking them up, beta testing a lot of software for them. So I really just learned about the industry kind of by fire from that standpoint.
Wow, that's exciting. Yeah, I remember that bridge failure in Minnesota. It was a big deal, and I mean there was loss of life, and I would imagine that's got to be a structural engineer's worst nightmare. And anytime that you can come up with technology that can help to avoid something like that in the future, I think it's huge. So you certainly are to be applauded, least of which is the fact that you picked up this manual and you read it, but then you also followed up with them, took initiative, and reached out to them to see if there was anything that you could do, because not only is it going to help them, but it also will help further you along in your career just from an understanding standpoint. So, man, that's kudos to you for doing that and taking that kind of initiative. That's really great. So tell me a little bit about what do you think you're going to be able to do with Structural MD?
So, well, obviously, I came to a lot of quote unquote a professional engineering because I'm not a PE.
Right.
So, but going back to unmanned experts real quick, all my work was reviewed by PEs. So all my reports are reviewed by them. But what I want to do is we're currently building a software platform and a drone for bridge inspections.
Okay.
So a lot of the drones out there, they're commercial. They aren't very adaptable. A lot of people just see a drone as a device and you put a camera on it and you fly it around and it's cute and we all clap. But it's really just a robot. It's no different than one that's, on the ground or goes in the water.
Right.
It's just a robot. And the first application, people was like, well, let me put a video camera on this. But really, you can do a lot of, crazy stuff with them. There's a company in Japan called Pro Drone, and they basically put 2 mechanical claws on the drone, kind of like what you see at those the little kids, stuffed animal games at the arcade. You try and pull out a stuffed animal.
Yeah.
So it's basically that, and they've just been, throwing crap at a wall and seeing what sticks with those mechanical claws, and that's kind of what we're working with. Building an actual platform and then building software that takes in the data. Because really, at the end of the day, the drone just collects data for us, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. It's really the software that makes them powerful. Because at the end of the day, it's, again, just a flying machine with an SD card and a video camera or whatever attachment or payload you put on it.
Yeah.
It's the software and the analysis that makes them the really powerful part.
Yeah, I can only imagine that very soon you'll be able to put some type of scanning device on a drone that will be able to go and scan effectively for failure points and things of that nature, and stress tests and visual stress tests to determine if a structure is sound or not. So
yes.
Yeah, so that's awesome, man. Well, I'm excited to hear that. And again, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on this podcast, is because, as a recruiter, and that's what I do, executive search, and we work, and I've worked in this industry for a good part of the last 3 decades. One of the things that we've always talked about is that, young engineers are supposed to sit and only speak when spoken to. And certainly I guess you've kind of taken that and put it on its side and said, you're going to do something a little differently, as I'm sure some of your peers have done coming out of school. But part of the reason why I wanted to bring you on was because I wanted to give, firm owners and others that are out there hiring young people like yourself in the engineering space and the architectural space, just a glimpse into the mind of a millennial. And now I won't say that you're a standard, right? Because you go above. It seems like you're going above and beyond the norm to try to make a difference, both where you work there at Osborne as well as with your own company. You're not really letting any grass grow under your feet, to say that. But my question would simply be, tell us a little bit about your mindset coming out of school. I mean, why you got into engineering in the first place, and ultimately what you hope to accomplish, because I think your experiences now are going to speak volumes in the future. And I think it would be helpful for firms to kind of hear from somebody like yourself if they want to attract people like a James Hillegas to come and work at their firm.
Yeah, so that's a lot of questions to answer. So I guess attracting millennials, I guess one of the biggest problems, I guess one of the biggest challenges is the 9-to-5 workday is kind of set up back in the old days. So, when 1960s or 50s, when you had to be tied to a wall with a telephone or you weren't as mobile, that made sense because It's basically like scheduling a meeting. Like everybody will be available between such and such time at, XYZ number.
Right.
Perfect. That makes total sense. Well, today it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
You can be answering business calls in the bathroom on an airplane 30,000 feet in the air. You can, as long as you got a cell phone connection, you're really available 24/7, 365.
Right.
So the rules kind of haven't changed with the times. And that's one of the bigger things is like you can get emails at 3 a.m. that someone might expect you to answer.
Right.
So I guess it seems like the companies try and treat everyone the same. Maybe someone isn't motivated by getting an extra $10,000. Maybe they would like an extra week of vacation instead of, a raise. So it's trying to understand what motivates the person. Because me at 23, I'll be honest, I'm personally motivated by money. I would like a Ferrari. I'm just gonna
put it out there. So.
Yeah, but if I'm like 30 and I have a family or something, then that might be a little bit different. I might be more motivated by time off from work or things of that nature. And it's trying to understand and dissect that person versus trying to treat everyone as a blanket scenario.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I didn't mean to throw so many questions at you. I just really wanted you to, there's a number of things I'd love to hear from you in reference to this issue. But you certainly pointed out what's important to you now versus what will be important to you later. And I think we all change over time. And I was the same way when I was your age. So I totally get that. And that's definitely helpful. What have you talked about with your peers with regard to going to work for engineering or design firms? I mean, what has been your biggest takeaway, and what is the normal refrain that you hear from some of your peers about getting into the workforce and dealing with a lot of the firms that are out there?
What do you mean by refrain? What do we discuss?
What do you discuss, and what's the constant? What is the I guess the easiest way to put it is, what do you hear over and over again from your peers when they go out and interview at different firms and their interactions with those firms? And I'm just curious to hear what you guys talk about.
Sure, a lot of it has to do with culture. So that's become a really big thing. I think it was either the Facebook movie or the movie on Google, kind of showing that culture. And I think a lot of older companies, this doesn't even just go for AEC, this just goes for companies in general. They tried to mirror that image of that Google atmosphere in their company. And it seems like they just put a Band-Aid on it. They put in a smoothie bar or a foosball table, and they really didn't include the culture that was there. So I think a lot of people do speak of the culture of the place that they work and the people that they work for. The two biggest things are obviously, because most of my peers are co-ops, they either talk about the pay of the company or the culture that comes as a part of being in that company.
Yep. Which one would you say is the most important?
I think culture.
Yeah, culture.
And the pay will come if you like where you work. And that brings up another good point. So everyone's heard the fact that 90% of people hate their job, or whatever the stat might be. And I don't think it's that people hate their job. I just think it's people hate either the culture or the structure that they're in. Yeah. In the sense that you're told what to wear, when to be there, and things of that nature. And that's why communism has never worked and will never work, because you take away the freedom of the people. And we take away, that's the number one, outside of needing food, water, air, freedom's got to be 4 or 5 on that list of just basic human needs.
Right.
And when you kind of put people in a box, you suffocate that freedom. And that's why people are I want to be an entrepreneur. Yeah. But it's not easy. It's just that freedom, or that concept of it's really sexy and attractive.
Yeah, well, I like that. Well, I must say that you are the first person to mention the word communism on the Zweig Letter podcast, and there's a first for everything. So no, that's your point is well taken. I noticed that you have a hoodie on and a cool hat. Is that standard dress code there at Osborne? And if so, I mean, I need to sign up and get an application in. So.
This is a Friday off attire.
Oh, okay. I got you. Do you guys now? I notice there's not many people around. Is there? Do they do half day Fridays, or do they do a special work schedule?
So they do the 980.
Oh,
so
okay.
every other Friday is a Friday off.
Oh, nice. So how do you like that?
That's really nice. Really helpful.
Okay. Well, that's cool. Is today one of those Fridays off?
Yep.
So basically, you got a 3-day weekend every other week.
Yes.
Yeah, nice. I like that. Okay. Well, very cool. So, so you are obviously having, you're getting a taste of entrepreneurship, and you're getting a taste of working in a firm for an organization that you actually like. How would you rate the two? Or is it, in your mind, is your goal to kind of be able to have your cake and eat it too? Or do you ultimately want to, at some point in time, transition over to doing your own thing as opposed to working for somebody else?
It kind of depends on where the software and the drone goes. Right now, obviously, I need a PE license, so that's kind of the forefront of focus. And obviously, I can't get that on my own, so I'll continue to work for someone else. But I'm not necessarily motivated by the title of I'm the founder or the CEO. I just want the chance to solve problems. I don't really care what my role is in that or what my title is in that.
Yeah.
So if it's something I do on the side, which is something you can do nowadays with the internet, then great. And if it's something I can do within a company, I'll mazel tov and I'll be right on over.
Okay. So how has Osborne, how has your current firm supported you with structural MD?
They've been great.
Okay.
I don't I can't speak to the fact that so when the whole thing started with this drone, I can't speak to the fact that they believed in it. Even the university I go to kind of laughed at the idea when I started it because I asked for help. If a professor wanted to do it, and I've done it all out of my bedroom at my parents' house, and we have letters of support from the Ohio Turnpike and the city of Akron. Made it to the final round of the Columbus Smart City program. So Columbus obviously got a lot of money from the federal government to do the whole Smart City initiative and basically be a beta tester and incubator of that whole connected IoT concept. And out of 400 or 500 applicants, we made it to the final round.
Wow.
And that just in itself brought a lot of buzz. Like the university got it. So I don't know if they realized how far it's come. But I guess they haven't said anything negative against it. I've been very open with wanting to use drones at work. So
right. Well, that's awesome. I mean, I applaud you for what you're doing because you're kind of stepping out of what might be perceived as a comfort zone to try something different, even when you don't ultimately know what the outcome is. But I think you're already starting to get some acknowledgement that, hey, you're on the right track. This is definitely something viable. And at the end of the day, we'll see, where it leads and what it leads to. So. But my next question would be, could you see yourself working for a design firm for the next 15 or 20 years?
Yeah, if the culture's right, totally.
Okay. And then what about what if you had the opportunity to work on a contract or project by project basis that would take you around to different parts of the country to experience different things? Maybe after you got your PE license, is that something that you would be inclined to do or that would be attractive to you?
Well, moving around, it kind of depends on, the family situation at the time, but it's definitely interesting to bring in outside people because they usually see things or question things. So I probably get, I ask way too many questions for one.
Right.
And I just kind of look for this is how we've always done it answer. And as soon as I hear that, I'm like, that's something that can be solved.
Well, and that's so funny you say that because that is like the most common refrain that we hear in this industry is that this is how we've always done it. And firms basically tell us, even as consultants, when we come into firms and try to walk them through ways to be more successful, one of the things they say is a lot of times, well, I'm not really sure because, this is how we've always done it and we've had some success with it. And I'm just like, sometimes you need to break things.
No, and I definitely agree. And I think I just gave a speech on this week, actually. I think it's in part just due to the way the industry got structured. So this is I guess, more of an opinion, but, the industry is typically projects are won on, typically low bid basis. Right. So if you're going to have low bid, how do you have the low bid? Well, you have to perceive like very, very small amount of risk. So if there's a lot of risk, your price is probably going to be higher than the next guy.
Right.
And the way you have low risk is you don't question things, you don't innovate, and you just stay with what's tried and true. But at one point, that tried and true, somebody bit the bullet and tried doing a pre-stress beam or doing a certain span or whatever the case might be. Somebody somewhere along the way had to be like, all right, I don't know if this is going to work, but hold my finger or cross my fingers, hold my breath, and let her go.
That's funny. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And so, yeah, I definitely encourage not just you, but others out there that are listening to this, especially those of you that are between the ages of 18 and 30 or 18 and 35, is you got to continue to push the envelope, scratch where you're itching with regard to the things that you want to do in your career, and get out and try them. If nothing else, you don't want to be 50 years old and be James Hillegas saying, man, if only at 23 I had done X, or if only at 25 I had done Y. You're actually out there doing it. And so I certainly applaud you for that. And I'm sure. Now, have you rubbed off on some of your peers in school, or are they or a lot of them of the same mindset, do you think, or more of them looking and saying, look, I just want to get a good job and I don't want to worry about all that entrepreneurial stuff?
Yeah, I definitely think I'm an outlier. I think after doing it for so many years, on social media, people obviously can see it. They've just, I don't want to say accepted it, but that's just kind of like the person I'm known as, is I guess doing a lot of things, and to each his own.
Yeah.
I don't aspire to push anyone to work the amount of hours I do or anything of that nature. But if you're complaining and then I'm just not going to listen, that type of thing. So if you have those ambitions, your actions have to back up your mouth.
Yeah, exactly. So speaking of actions, I know you do a little lifting, and I've noticed that you put up some serious weight on a regular basis. Now, have you competed in powerlifting, or is it just something that you do just to release tension?
Yeah, so I mean, I was the typical fat bully kid. I was an engineer and a nerd before it was, I guess, cool. So thank you, Mark to Mark Zuckerberg. He made being a nerd. He made being a nerd cool. No, but I do compete in powerlifting, and I do that on a pretty regular basis. But it's a way to stay healthy. I guess working at a desk, my worst fear is, being old and not being able to get out of my seat. So
right.
Sitting down for 10, 12, 14 hours a day, even that 3 hours or 2 hours or an hour of movement goes a long way.
Okay. All right. Well, give us some of your stats, man. I mean, what do you bench?
So last one was best all time was 265.
Okay.
Best deadlift was 480 and best squat was 385.
Nice. Okay. Good. Yeah. I was listening to there was some talk about some of the guys in the combine for the NFL. And I guess one of the players had bench press 225 48 times, and I was just like, wow, it's just that's out of control. So,
but you brought up an interesting point. I think that goes back to the internet, and I think people and kids are starting things younger and younger.
Yeah.
Whereas like you see something like a crazy thing where like this kid does a backflip at 3 and things of that nature. I think kids are just stumbling upon things that I don't think you or even I recognized at that age that even existed. Like I don't even think I knew weightlifting existed until my dad forced me in 8th grade to go to the YMCA. Like right. I don't think I had any clue that people ever worked out or things of that nature, or even a lot of other subjects. So that you just don't realize, because unless it's either in your ecosystem or you happen to, chance of God, you just meet it. But now with the internet, you can just stumble upon it.
I know, it's crazy. I mean, even I have a 12, a 10, and a 7-year-old, and my 12-year-old is really big into making videos on Musical.ly, and I would at his age I would have never been there, and he's actually really good. I mean, I watch his videos because they're hilarious, and he's actually pretty talented, and I can only imagine what the world's going to be like for him in 8 years. When he's 20 or in 11 years when he's your age. I mean, man, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. So, it's very, very cool. So what's on the horizon for James Hillegas? Where do you see yourself in the next 2 to 3 years?
Sure. So obviously, hopefully finish up this master's degree in a semester. And I apologize, they're drilling next door.
That's okay. Hey, we're a live podcast, so it's all good. Don't worry about it. So.
So finish up the master's degree, continue to work at Osborne, probably move up to their Cleveland office, and work on getting the PE license, and then finish the development of our drone and beta version of the software for probably next summer testing.
Okay, cool. So it sounds like you got things worked out. Wow, that's super awesome. Well, listen, man, I really appreciate you taking the time to give us some insight into the mind of a millennial. And again, I don't think that you are a normal millennial, but I do think that what you have to share is important. And I think that your experiences, and I'll be on the sidelines applauding you and watching as you continue to progress. And I'll certainly keep the listening audience updated on how you're doing, and people will be able to connect with you via our show notes and all that good stuff. So, if anybody wanted to follow you on Instagram, what's your Instagram ID?
So it's JA and then my last name Hillegas _51.
Okay, and that's HILLEGAS.
You got it right.
Okay, perfect. Well, listen, I want to do something. We're doing something a little different on this interview series, and we just want to learn a little bit more about who you are as an individual. And why don't you just have a little fun in the process? Why don't you, in between the noise, why don't you tell us what was the last book that you read?
Last book that I read, it was How to Make an Algorithm.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. Have you tried to make one since then?
That's what we're using for the software when it comes to building the platform. It's called Easy Inspection for the drones and the bridge inspections. Okay.
Well, I got something for you. There is on Netflix, there's a great documentary about algorithms. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's amazing. You should check it out when you get a chance. So.
Oh, certainly. I will.
Yeah, for sure. Where did you go on your last vacation if you've taken one recently?
Last vacation was with a family to Holiday Valley in New York.
Oh,
Go
nice.
skiing.
Okay. So you like skiing?
I absolutely love. I can't wait for it to snow.
Okay. Well, good. That's good for you. If you could binge watch one TV series, old or new, what would it be?
I don't even know if I don't even watch TV, but if I could watch one thing, old or new, what would it be? Whew. I don't even know if I know it's even on TV right now. Mythbusters.
Okay, Mythbusters. Well, that says a lot about you then. That means because you're busy doing other things and living life. So that's exciting. Listen, James, I really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to be with us on the Zweig Letter interview series. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Randy. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, no problem. Folks, I want to encourage you today to get a free subscription of Civil Plus Structural Engineer magazine. And to sweeten the pot, we're doing something that we've never done before, and this is probably one of the first times that I'm announcing this. We're offering in a free subscription. Yes, you heard it right, a free subscription to the Zweig Letter, the electronic version. Just visit free.tzl.zweiggroup.com and we'll take care of the rest. Everything will be delivered to you electronically. In addition, if your firm is looking to hire great talent, please join our mailing list for aecworkforce.com. Just text the word hire faster to 66866, and that will get you on the list where you will learn more about this upcoming job board for the design and construction industry. As a reminder, all Zweig Group media programs like this one are available in most cases both in podcast and video format, free for download on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and YouTube, just to name a few places. A link to all this information, including James's contact information, will be in our show notes. And we'd love it if you'd go to iTunes or wherever you tune into this show and give us a 5-star rating. And remember, share this link with a friend, because sharing is caring. I'm Randy Wilburn, and you've been listening to Zweig Group Media, part of Zweig Group. Remember, we exist to make you more successful. Bye for now.
Thanks for tuning in to this Zweig Letter Podcast. We hope that you can apply Mark's no-holds-barred advice to your daily professional life. For a free transcript of this or any episode of our podcast, please visit info.zweiggroup.com/podcast. If you want more wisdom and inspiration, in addition to information about finance, HR, and marketing your firm, subscribe to the print or digital version of the Zweig Letter online at zweiggroup.com/publications.